ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Big D country, welcome to the first ever Leaders of Tomorrow of the year 2023. And before I get to the Leaders of Tomorrow segment, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl in a drama mill fashion. Like I said before, the final score was 38-35. I got a little worried there in the first half. I mean, it was kind of boring. It was just 7-7. It was really boring. But it went wild in the second half. Thank you. And it was kind of wild in the second half. And I heard it was a crazy end. I got to look at videos. Thank God they do the videos without the commercial on the NFL Network on YouTube. Thank God. But ladies and gentlemen, I already talked about that during the other episode. I'm still excited about that Super Bowl. But ladies and gentlemen, it's Leaders of Tomorrow time. And my guest did an awesome job at Podfest in Orlando in 2023. And we're fellow speakers. I did Pocha Ketcha. She did her own thing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, she is the host, podcaster, and producer of Wealth Yoga Wine Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one, the beautiful Valerie. Hell!
Quite an introduction. Thank you for having me, Deshaun.
Oh, you quite welcome. I told you it was going to be fire. I told you. I was not lying at all. So before we get into your awesome speech at Podfest, why don't you tell the listeners about yourself, because this is the first time you've been here at the Second Palace. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I began the podcast during lockdown. I actually taught myself podcasting. It literally took a year and a half. I do not come from a technical background. I am notorious for selling French wine and other imported wines in New York for 23 years. During that time of selling French wine and traveling throughout the Hudson Valley, actually the entire state, because 23 years ago, people were not loving French wine the way the French do and the way I do. Therefore, I had to have a very large territory. I worked anywhere from Westchester all the way up to Buffalo. I was a traveling saleswoman.
Wow.
What happened? Yes, it was insane, but I really loved what I did. I traveled quite a bit to France. I would travel to Spain. I would travel to Portugal and Italy. I really had a blessed life.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yes, I know it. I look back on it, and I think, you have a really blessed life. Well, during that time, Deshaun, for some crazy reason, I decided to also fulfill a lifelong dream. That lifelong dream was to have an inn, maybe a cozy little bed and breakfast. So I describe it this way. I got a wasp in my bonnet, and I bought 40 acres and 3 houses for pennies. Seriously. I mean, it was the steal of the century. The 40 acres and 3 houses, this 40-year-old single woman also decided to take the 1900 circa farmhouse, work with architects, the planning board, contractors, and I created Le Petit Chateau Inn. So
amazing.
Every room was named. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Let me tell you. So every room was named after a French wine region. The property is literally up the street from the Culinary Institute of America. I used the student chefs. It was truly a destination place. That was my life. That was my life 4 years ago. Then the pandemic struck, and my company transferred me to Florida because the lockdown was totally different here.
Oh.
And I could still work a little bit, but then really everything shut down. So I literally lost 2 careers. I had to shut down the inn. I couldn't be in the wine sales any longer because my predominant clientele were really nice restaurants and really nice country clubs. So I took that time and taught myself podcasting. my mentor said to me, what do you already have? What are your assets, Valerie, that you already have? I love public speaking. I've been doing it for 30-some-odd years. I studied Kundalini yoga, specific yoga for 30 years. And here I sold all this wine for 23 years. So I had 3 subjects I could talk about eloquently and in fun ways for listening. Now, I'll share with you, my podcast is only 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I keep it short and sweet. You know what, Deshaun? People have told me, the real young guru hip people, if you don't catch their attention in the first 3 seconds, they're done with you. I just transferred that information. Now my audience is much older, thank goodness, than the millennials and the Gen X's and Z's and all that alphabet. However, it's still true in our society. People don't have time.
Wow.
So I just made a short, and it's fun. I mean, I really, really, really love what I do. I love my podcast.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Could you kindly share where people could get the link to your podcast?
Oh, anywhere. Apple, Spotify. I'm on 28 different directories. So I think most people listen to Apple. They might, Spotify's big, SoundCloud, but it's an international reach because I'm in, I can't think of the unusual names. I'm in Ghana. That's not a big audience, but as Dave Jackson says, hey, if I get 300 downloads in Ghana, I'm very happy. But I think I'm on 28 directories, so you can really find me anywhere. And I'm always posting on LinkedIn once a week. The podcast is only once a week.
Okay.
Because I also teach online courses in public speaking, the fear of public speaking.
Wait a minute. You didn't have no fear at all that day. I mean, no fear.
No, that's why I teach it. Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that. My therapist, although I don't use her for therapy, but I call her my therapist because I try to send referrals to her. My therapist said the same thing. She said, you're natural. But you know what? I talk about what I know. Deshaun, and listen, I'm listening to you as the announcer and the host. You talk about what you know.
Right.
And that makes us pros. It really does. People talk about subjects they don't know anything about, and so they get nervous and they flounder. You can talk about subjects that you don't know, but you better practice over and over and over. So, but I practice my podcast. It's not live, it's recorded, but I go outside and I practice it before it's like singing. Jody Kringle? So she does voiceovers and she does voice control. When you get up first thing in the morning, if you haven't practiced with your voice, if you're just the first time you begin to speak in the morning, if you're speaking professionally and you haven't exercised your vocal cords, you're going to have a difficult time.
True.
So
that's true.
That's why I always practice whatever I'm doing. I practice my speeches.
Wow. Now, speaking of speeches, okay, so when the podfest was coming up and you decided to speak, first of all, how did it feel when you got accepted to do your own breakout session? And then how did you prepare? And then, like you said, I know you practiced, but you sounded like you've been speaking for years. How did that all come about?
I have been speaking for years. Seriously.
Wow.
I was a graduate in Denton, Texas. I had to make several presentations. They were actually technical. Therefore, I learned at a young age how to make presentations, but then I was involved with Toastmasters. I was involved with other public speaking training groups because there's quite a few out there. Therefore, I have just really been doing it consistently for 30 years. Quite honestly, Deshaun, any opportunity I have to speak, I'm the first one who'll me. I'm not shy, but I really believe in the succinct. There's an introduction, there's a body, there's a conclusion.
Oh wow!
Even in your elevator speech, your 1 or 2 minute speech, there's a introduction, there's a body, and then there's a conclusion. If people remember that, I say this in the courses that I'm teaching, Fear of Public Speaking, kick those thoughts to the curb. I teach people that even if you're going in for a bank loan to an officer, have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. They will be so impressed when you sound together in your speech pattern, in your words that you choose. They could care less about your credit rating. I'm very serious about this. This is truly selling yourself. What about in a job interview? Don't let them just ask the question. You present yourself. So I've been doing public speaking. I've done it all. I've done humorous speeches. I mean, look, I was raised in Texas. There's a lot of funny things in Texas.
Oh, wow.
I've done it all. I've done storytelling. I'm going to have a seat when I move. Well, if you're going to move, Houston's a wonderful city. I don't care for Dallas. It's too stodgy. They're very conservative there.
Yeah, I kind of like in the middle myself. The conservatives scare me on certain parts of things, but I do believe in God. But the conservatives scare me to death every time when it comes to the stupid debt ceiling thing. It's scary. It's scary because I don't work. I mean, I'm disabled, and if they cut benefits to a point that I can't live, then what's next? I mean,
Yes, I agree. Yeah. But Houston, seriously, Houston is much more amenable to people from all different lifestyles.
Oh, wow.
Now, Dallas is too conservative for me. I lived about 30 years in Texas. Then I was working in the corporate world for a long time. I fell in love with a New Yorker. He lived in New York, and so he kidnapped me, and I lived in New York for 29 years. But I married a Frenchman.
Sorry, I was laughing at the kidnap part. I'm sorry.
So I know Texas well. That's my point.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So hopefully Houston Section 8 will come first. So first I think it's for Houston.
I think you'd like Houston.
Now, this would be a great question that I wanted to ask, but it didn't have time. And then, frankly, my mind was so circling around because after that great speech that at the time when it was at Podfest. Now, when you was talking about press release, the main thing that came across me was never send on weekends and holidays. When most people who have a 40-hour work week, working full time, it's like, oh my gosh. Never work never send on weekends or holidays. What do I do?
But you're sending it. To newspapers. But Deshaun, you're sending it to staff. Believe it or not, the people who will publish your event or publish a press release, they do work Monday to Friday. We're thinking of our reporters or whatever. So that's why you don't want to send your press release in the evening or weekends or holidays, because nobody's there to get it, and it just gets buried in their other emails. Now, I try not to send mine at 6 a.m. in the morning, but sometimes I do it.
Oh, wow.
Just to get off my plate. So when you're doing a press release, your press release is going to all the newspapers in the United States.
That's right. That's true.
Okay.
So now, since we were talking about press releases, tell people about what you spoke about, because I know you talked about mostly about marketing, and tell us the passion and the fire that you gave when you speak. Tell us the Cliff Note version of your speech.
Sorry, say that again.
The Cliff Note version of your speak about the internet marketing and press release, and when you was on fire, I wanted to give everybody a chance to hear parts of it. Give us the Cliff Note version of your speech.
Definitely. Definitely. Sure. So just the short of the press release, it's who, what, where, when, why. What I love about the press release is you get to embellish about yourself, because when do you get to brag about yourself professionally? That's what a press release gives you the opportunity to do. The first thing you want to do when you write the press release is announce who you are or what it's about, and then you intertwine the who, what, where, when, why throughout your press release, and you really want to make it exciting. If you were reading this press release, Why would you want to go to the event? Or, for instance, now I'm running a press release about my mini course, Fear of Public Speaking. Why would people want to take this? So I outline, but you write it like it's a story, but you have to have who, what, where, when, and why. Now, I use two underutilized websites for marketing my podcast, and I'm going to use them for my mini courses also. For Alignable is amazing. And all these are free. Free is where my budget is right now because I'm a true startup. With Alignable, and that's it. It's very easy to find. Just Google Alignable, and it's spelled just like it sounds. With Alignable, it's a free profile. Once again, you embellish yourself. You make yourself, you're marketing yourself to sell whatever it is, whether it's product or an online service. That's your local region. Like where I live is the St. Petersburg area. I live in Gulfport, but I'm sandwiched between St. Pete Beach, Gulfport, and St. Petersburg. You have that free network, and you just want to keep building it with networking with those people online in Alignable. But what's really cool about Alignable is it has subgroups. Therefore, my podcast is kind of woo-woo. It's business-oriented it's a business-oriented with some spiritual success in business. I'm not just your plain old vanilla business person. I really put a punch in the way I run my business. So there's tons of subgroups. Well, I mean, tons. I'll just say several, like maybe 100. So I chose the subgroup coaches, therapists, self-help people. When you use that subgroup, you have to be really careful and not self-promote, which doesn't make any sense to me because it's business. My podcast my business is a podcast. My podcast is a business. Its mission is to help other people in their lifestyles improve. But the other thing I do on my podcast, I monetize it, but I monetize it in a way that unfortunately right now is not sustainable. I only have people pay for advertising, which really I tell a story about them, but they have to be altruistic. They have to be doing something to either improve their community or the world at large. For instance, Dolphin Landings, they have a nonprofit called Soothe Our Souls, and they take people out once a month on a free excursion to help them with their mental and physical disabilities. I've known Captain Don for years. I'm a sailor, so I can talk about him for a year, for 3 minutes. That's the beauty of my podcast. For every segment, I promote somebody, I feature somebody for a year at almost no cost. I mean, it's embarrassing. That's why I'm branching out into my public speaking. But the idea with Alignable is that here I am promoting these businesses which are improving the world, but they won't let me upload my podcast, so I have to be sneaky. Like I can't do the link. I can't do the link to my podcast, which is stupid.
It's on Facebook. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, but I don't like Facebook at all. So I trust me, I'm a marketing maven here. I put it in so many places, but I talked to an ambassador from Alignable today because they were so impressed that I presented them at PodFest. They reached out to me and they said, what can we do to improve? And Deshaun, let me share with you, that was the first thing I said.
Wow.
Why is it I have this podcast that is really serving the community, but you won't, and I just like any social media, you have to go on, you connect like LinkedIn, Instagram, all those social media things. You need to go on and pay attention to the people who are posting. When you find someone who's empathetic that you can comment, you need to do that before you post. You can't go on these social media sites and just post. You will never increase your connections. You'll never increase your community. You'll never build trust or relationships with anybody if you don't first reach out and give people's comments a pat on the back, relate to what they're saying, and share with them how you appreciated their comment, and maybe if you had something that happened to you, you make it a real dialogue between two people. So that's a really important thing that I have learned actually through PodFest people in one of their presentations. You have to connect with people before you post.
Wow.
Does that explain what so that's what I was explaining in the presentation. What's interesting about Alignable is the subgroups, because in my local groups, my local region, Deshaun, I'll probably get, let's just say 100 views. When you go into your subgroup, the woo-woo group, the coaches and therapists and all that, I'll get thousands of hits. I'll get thousands of views.
Wow.
So it's important when people are marketing to look at Alignable, explore the right way to use it. They have free events also. And then I use 40 billion. Now 40 billion, it's nothing special. I only get maybe 7 or 10 views. I think the most I've ever had was 20 something. But it's free. It's free. It gets you out there. You're in the internet world. You get to build your profile up. I look at everything to market my podcast. And now, the mini courses, I'm going to go crazy with that too.
I mean, I really enjoyed this interview. You have to come back again and give us an update about your show and what you've been doing. And it's been a total blast.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed this too because, of course, it gives me a chance to pat myself on the back.
Exactly. I think that's what Leaders of Tomorrow is all about. Not only give people a chance to talk about their business, their success, and then the way that it can it can help somebody and inspire somebody to want to go into business and just dive in.
Yes. Don't overthink it. That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Move. Take action. Mary Morrissey, one of my favorite gurus, and I studied with her for years, and I pay dearly, but she helped me through the pandemic too. Baby steps. Just every day, number one rule, be clear and focused on what you want. If you don't know what you want yet, just listen to the universe. I know that's woo-woo. Write down things, say them aloud. Is this something I'd love? And then every day take a baby step. Take an action step. People are afraid to take action steps. I don't get that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been in Live Good for almost a couple, either a year or two before I finally could get my membership. And then, some people are afraid to step out. I mean, it's like, come on, it's a great company. I was like, let's go. You got to take action.
Yes. It does not work sitting still. You gotta be a mover and shaker.
Exactly. I agree with that. And I want to talk about off there about advertising, how I get to advertise on your show and how you get to advertise on my show. I would like to explore that with you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first, citizens. And so any closing thoughts? And then before I let you close out, speaking of Live Good, don't forget Live Good is the brand new health and wellness company, and Valerie, you should try it. I'm going to try their CBD oil because I have severe depression, PTSD, and CBD oil helps with that. So I'm going to get that probably after when I go from between podcast movement evolutions and podcast movement. But regardless, they also have Super Reds. It's almost like Super Beats, but lower cost. And they also have coffee for all your coffee drinkers. I know you're going to love that. They have healthy coffee for you. And so, yeah, Live Good is definitely where it is in 2023. Go to livegoodtour.com/BigDCountry. I'll say it again, livegoodtour.com/BigDCountry. But don't just pre-roll. Activate your membership. It's only almost $10 for a month, but you'll have a second option. Oh, yeah, you do. You have a second option to join for $100 a year. That's what I did the whole year. And that way, you can have a choice whenever you want to buy the product. So you have a choice. And what is important, a choice? I think it is. So, Valerie, the floor is yours. You end the interview the way you see fit, and thank you for coming on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate this, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the information about my podcast, Wealth Yoga Wine. I certainly hope people will subscribe to it, because then I can tell the wonderful people who I asked to collaborate with me on the podcast, I can share with the world how amazing their entities are with improving the world. Thanks again, Deshaun.
Anytime. So with that, you could close it however the way you end your podcast.
I record this podcast every week to improve people's lives in less than 10 minutes. I'm Valerie Hale.